This heartbreaking story took place in the Nizhny Novgorod region, where a little girl disappeared from her dacha plot. While hundreds of concerned people, including volunteers, were combing the forest in the hope of finding the child, she had already fallen victim to a brutal criminal. Masha, the beloved and long-awaited daughter of her mother Nelly, was the meaning of her life. Nelly, who had long dreamed of motherhood, found happiness at the age of 32, giving birth to a baby girl. Unfortunately, after the birth of Masha, the relationship between the spouses gave a crack, and they made a difficult decision to divorce. The father of the girl, leaving the family, stopped communicating with both his ex-wife and his daughter. However, Nelly, sparing no effort, surrounded Masha care and attention, thanks to which the girl did not feel deprived. Left alone, Nelly opened her own business, which brought her success. In the upbringing of her daughter, she was helped by her mother, so that the whole family could spend more time outdoors and enjoy nature. Nelly bought a dacha near Nizhny Novgorod. This cottage became a quiet family nest for them. Hardly anyone could have guessed at the time that a truly frightening incident would begin here. Grandmother and granddaughter spent the summer months at the cottage, and Nelly tried to come here in her spare time. On September 3rd, Masha was supposed to go to school, but that day fell on a weekend. In the evening, her mother planned to come to pick her up to go to school together in the morning, because it was such an important day for the girl. But things went far from that scenario. Nelly always kept in touch with her loved ones, calling several times a day, and now she dialed her mother's number again on the eve of the 1st of September. Her grandmother answered that she had laid down to rest because her blood pressure had risen. Nelly asked to call Masha, who at that moment, according to her grandmother, was playing somewhere on the plot. The grandmother came out of the house and started calling her granddaughter, but she did not respond. Nelly heard her mother running and calling for Masha. Soon she heard the words that made her heart squeeze. "The wicket door is open." But that was simply impossible. Nelly specially installed a strong lock so that her daughter could not leave the territory of the dacha on her own. Nelly's heart, as if anticipating trouble, trembled. She realized that something had happened to her daughter. The alarmed woman, having thrown away all her affairs, immediately went to the dacha. 40 minutes later, she was already there. She drove along all the roads of the dacha village, then went to the DPS post, located 5 kilometers from the dacha, hoping that suddenly someone picked up the girl and handed her over to the police. Upon entering the post, Nelly approached the first officer, but unfortunately no one brought the girl. The staff of the post immediately reported the disappearance of 7-year-old Masha to the police and announced a planned interception, checking all cars leaving the village. Literally 15 minutes later, the first police crews arrived in the settlement. They were followed by volunteers of the search team. The search headquarters was immediately deployed. In such situations, every second counts. After all, a child's life may depend on it. The main version of the search was initially considered unauthorized departure of the girl from the dacha. It was assumed that she went beyond the site and got lost, because the village on all sides surrounded by dense forest. Later, this version would be recognized as erroneous. Volunteers recorded the mother's voice and began to broadcast it through loudspeakers installed on cars. They traveled along dacha and forest roads, because lost children are often frightened and hide. While the volunteers were scouring the forests, the police began to work out the criminal version of Masha's disappearance. At first, suspicion fell on the girl's father, but he had an ironclad alibi, so the main criminal version was kidnapping by an unknown person. In the case of kidnapping, the minutes counted. Statistics stated that after 2 hours, the chance of finding a child alive was close to 0. And her mother and grandmother were sure that Masha simply could not have left the station by herself. Soon the criminal version became a priority. It turned out that over the past month, 2 girls, aged 9 and 13, had disappeared without a trace in the region. And most strikingly, these girls were also called Masha. It was not ruled out that a serial criminal had appeared in the Nizhny Novgorod region. and the missing little girl was now in his hands. In the village quickly arrived criminal investigation officers and began their work. Meanwhile, volunteers continued to fulfill their task, because with any version of the girl could be in the forest. The disappearance of the third girl has caused a huge resonance. Volunteers began to come to the village, ready to help. By evening, there was an unimaginable number of people and law enforcement officers. Night fell, it got dark, but there were still no results. Nellie was going mad with grief. Where was her daughter? What is with her now? Hopelessness suffocated her. She was ready to do anything to find the child, but at the same time could not do anything. In the small village, police officers were thoroughly searching houses and plots. Interviewing all the locals, one of them reported that he noticed a man on the road who was carrying a blonde girl of 6-7 years old towards the forest. Based on the description of the witness, the police assumed that it was the disappeared Masha. Police crews immediately went to the scene. The footprints of an adult and a child were indeed found in the specified part of the forest. The police officers, wasting no time, followed them practically at a run. Everyone realized that every second counted. After 15 minutes of searching, the police noticed from afar a certain light spot on the ground in the dark forest. It was Masha. The girl was found. Masha was alive, but she was very frightened and under stress. She was not wearing any underwear. The police began evacuating her from the woods. The information was immediately relayed to headquarters. At the meeting point, Masha was waited for by medics and her mother, who rushed to her child in tears. She immediately noticed the bruises on her daughter's face. Upon seeing her mom, Masha began to cry. "Mommy, mommy, mommy." The girl was all bruised and badly frightened. She wasn't wearing any underwear. She was found in the woods, 5 kilometers from the dacha. In the police car, Nellie clutched her daughter to herself. Here she was able to get a better look at Masha. Half of the girl's face was swollen, as if she'd been hit or pressed hard to the ground. As they rode in the car, Masha began to tell her mother what had happened. She had not left the lot on her own. She had been suspected and then abducted by a neighbor. He took her into the house. Masha started screaming, then he hit her hard on the face. After that, she lost consciousness and does not remember what happened to her afterwards. She regained consciousness when the man dragged her deep into the dark forest. It was at that moment that she heard the shouts of the police officers and the beams of their flashlights. The kidnapper noticed it too, so he left the girl and ran away. The frightened Masha could not remember which house she had been dragged into. Now this house was searched for by law enforcement officers. Near the place where the child was found, the police found an empty bottle of vodka, men's flip-flops and a cell phone apparently. The kidnapper noticed it too, so he left the girl and ran away. The frightened Masha could not remember which house she had been dragged into. Now this house was searched for by law enforcement officers. Near the place where the child was found, the police found an empty bottle of vodka, men's flip-flops and a cell phone apparently. The kidnapper dropped it while running away. Thanks to the gadget, the criminal was quickly identified. It turned out to be 44-year-old local resident Mikhail Motilkov. The criminal was at home. He was immediately detained. Subsequently, he gave a confession. According to him, having seen the girl alone on the plot, he opened the gate and called her. He was a neighbor. Masha had seen him more than once, so she approached him without any problems. He immediately grabbed her and dragged her to his house. In the house, the girl started screaming and he hit her. She lost consciousness. He wanted to commit the crime in his house, but saw that the police had arrived in the village. Motilkov hid the girl, waiting for the right moment. He dragged her into the forest to commit a serious crime against a minor, then killed her and drowned her in a swamp. The police arrived at the last moment when he had already started his work. Motilkov was sentenced to 25 years in prison. Mashin was not involved in the disappearance of the others. The girls were killed by different men, found and convicted. Thank you for watching this video. If you liked it, don't forget to put a like and subscribe to the channel so you don't miss new stories. Leave your comments and share your thoughts.